Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of AutoFYI. Today we're going to be looking at checking your fluids. Simple, easy thing. Most people do it all the time, but actually, believe it or not, often it gets overlooked. A lot of people don't bother with it or forget about it or think it's something trivial. They may even only worry about things like washer fluid because, you use that in the winter or whatever. But oftentimes, other fluids, checking them, just keeping maintenance on them, will actually save you a lot of money, and a lot of time, a lot of headache, a lot of extra costs you don't need later on. So we're going to talk about that now and just go through quickly what to check, what to look for, when to look for it. At the same time, while we also look into that for you, we're also going to discuss the fluids briefly and everything like that. So before we even get into checking the fluids, let's talk about that quickly. First, as this is my new show, AutoFYI, make sure to like, comment, let me know what you like, dislike, anything like that. Make sure to leave that in the comments below. I do want to hear about, I always respond to feedback, good or bad, so let me know. Second thing, let's talk fluids quickly for a moment. Making sure that when you do check this, you have all your fluids ready and available. So if you have, for example, check your manual. Excuse me while I have a sore throat. But make sure you check your manual. Know what type of fluids your car is supposed to use. That's very important. You do not want to be mixing different types of fluids. And also, even within the same types, for example, brake fluid, there's different types, .3, .4, so on. You do not want to be mixing the different types, even if there's some compatibility. You really don't want to do it. Don't worry about the headache of it, trying to figure out which works and doesn't work. Just stick to what the car is supposed to use, and that's it. Don't overcomplicate things for yourself. So make sure you always have some on hand. It's always good. I always keep some fluid extra on hand. Also, at the same time, if you're going to be pouring the fluid in or anything like that, make sure if you're using funnels, you either wash each funnel thoroughly before you putting another fluid in, or have multiple funnels, one for each fluid. For example, one for coolant, one for washer fluid, one for brake fluid, etc. Personally, I just like to pour kind of by eye, but that's not for everybody. So if you're going to use a funnel, make sure do not mix fluids. You do not want contaminants. Even something, although it's all, people think, oh, it's all car fluid, what does it matter? Sometimes mixing something as simple as coolant and brake fluid could have catastrophic results in your system. So you want to make sure that you have the right fluid, you're not mixing, and you're keeping precautions. Even if you're using something simple as a napkin, do not use the same cloth or napkin or anything to wipe off the dipsticks or anything like that. So with that being said, let's get straight to it. So when you are checking your fluids, you want to make sure that you're not, you're checking certain times. So for example, some fluids you check when it's cold, some you check when it's hot. And people have different opinions on this, but I'll just give you my thoughts on it, what I've been using for years. The one obvious one though is coolant. Coolant you only check when the car is cold. You never, ever, ever, ever check when it's hot. The reason for that is, as you can see, this is your overflow tank. Now my car has a separate overflow tank. So this is not pressurized. This is okay to open, no problem. However, if the car is warm, this becomes pressurized, your rad cap. Now some cars, be warning if you see you have an overflow, that some cars don't have a rad cap, and then this becomes your rad cap essentially. This is tied directly into the system, your overflow. You want to be careful because that can be pressurized. So it doesn't happen on a lot of cars, but it is there. So whatever the case is, you want to make sure the car is cold when you're checking your coolant. Also, again, with coolant, there's different types. Mainly, there's the old school green, and of course, the newer Deck School. Most cars take the time to label, as this one does here. But at the same time, not all cars do. So you want to make sure you're using the right coolant. You do not want to mix, even if you're flushing out your system. Stick to what it is. Some people will tell you, yes, you can mix. If you flush out your system with the old green, you can put Deck School in. Yes, that's actually true on some cars. But again, don't overcomplicate things. Don't do anything unless you really, really know what you're doing and you know the ins and outs of your car system, if it's aluminum or what's inside or what the case is. In this case here, make sure you have the right type of coolant. In this case, mine is Deck School. Car is cold. Right now my car's warm, so I'm not going to open this. But you'd open this up, check the level inside. If it's a little bit low, top it up with some coolant. In this case, Deck School. Put the cap back on. And then you come over here. Same thing over here. Inside we'll have, normally a lot of times they'll have a marker somewhere on there that's kind of a max level. You want to fill it up just to the max level. Do not fill on any car. I've never seen where you fill the entire reservoir, and never do, because it's supposed to be also an overflow. If there's pressure buildup in here or something happens, thermostat cuts off and it needs to dump some coolant, it's got to dump it in here. And if this is full, it's going to overflow right out and you're going to have a lot of trouble. Don't want to bother with that. So you fill that to its max level. Have that full, that's done cold. Now, at the same time, because the engine's cold, I'll actually take the extra time to go look at a couple other things. These ones, doesn't matter so much if it's hot or cold. However, as the engine's cold, it's a little bit easier to check. Sometimes some cars, although mine's easy to get to, for example, the brake fluid, some cars is hard to get to, or it could be near a hot part or something like that. You do want to, avoid having to get yourself in that situation. So here, of course, brake fluid. You're going to want to check for discoloration, and mine's actually getting a little dark, so I will be changing that soon, probably later this year. It's actually fairly dark. You want to check the level. Some of them will have a mark on it to say, hey, this is where it should be. Mine doesn't have that, but the general rule, for at least for this car, is this notch here, just go a little bit over. As you can see, I'm right on the spot there. So that's okay as far as the fluid is concerned. Now, sorry to go back to it for a second. For coolant, I recommend checking that maybe once a month. Just making sure you keep on top of it. It also gives you kind of a eyesight into the engine. If your coolant level is going down very quickly once a month while you're burning coolant, something is happening in there, right? So this gives you kind of aside from just checking your fluids and making sure it's topped up and, oh yeah, you check and there's enough in there, it's fine. It's not just that. If you're opening it up and every month you're opening and it's gone down and you have to fill it, there may be a problem you want to look into. It's burning fluid for some reason. Same with the brake fluid. You're checking this, I would say, once a month, once every 2 months, unless you notice a problem with your brakes, maybe once a month or once every 2 months. And this one here is mostly visual. You can open the top, of course, and take a look inside. But mostly this one, most brake fluid reservoirs are clear or kind of opaque like this. So you can take enough of a look that, you could just do a quick eye visual check on it. Brake fluid, again, same thing. There is some more interchangeability in brake fluid. There's .3, .4, .5, .5.1. There's all sorts of different types out there. Some specific for certain Japanese manufacturers as well. But at the same time, don't mix. Although there is claimed compatibility, just don't even stress about it. Check and make sure which one is yours. Use the right one, and that's it. Top it up if you need to top up. And if you have to top up constantly, you may have a brake issue there. The other thing I check when it's cold, and again, it doesn't really matter too much, I just check for the sake of, is my washer fluid. A lot of cars, as you see mine, it's very far away from the engine. However, some cars it's not. Some of them just have a little notch and it's very close by, and although the risk of burning yourself is very, very low, why put yourself through that, right? So just open it up, to put your fluid in. Washer fluid is probably the easiest one to do because there really isn't a lot to it. It's just your fluid preference. I mean, sometimes, yeah, some fluids are no-name brands or anything can cause slight corrosion to cars. I've seen that happen where over time some people have dedicated themselves to a brand, and that one brand has done damage to their paint over time. I won't say any brands or anything like that, but I've had some people where that's been claimed to happen. However, in this case here, I use whatever brands I prefer, put it in, and away you go. Easy enough, right? Good. Alright, so that's covered everything so far. We've looked at our washer fluid. Let's open it up, top it up, and away you go. Coolant, only do when it's cold. You put in whatever your appropriate fluid is. In this case, my car was Dex Cool. Check with the manufacturer, check your manual, anything like that. Top it in the rad first. If you have a rad cap, some cars do not have a rad cap, and they only have the reservoir tank. Fill there if you need to. Fill to your max line only at maximum. Do not fill the entire reservoir tank. Brake fluid, do a visual check how it looks inside, how everything stands, everything like that, and just go from there. So, with that said, that leaves us just a couple. That leaves us with our engine fluid, our transmission, and power steering. These ones I do recommend doing when the car is a little bit warmer. Not hot though, not hot by any means. What I normally do is I'll go into the car, start it up, let it run for a bit, and while it's running, I'll actually, but again, run only for about a minute, not much. I'll go to the wheels, again, while it's running, and turn the steering wheel all the way to the lock. That means turning it all the way to the end, so it feels like it hits a lock, so that's what it is. And then you turn all the way to other opposite lock, which you turn all the way to the other end again until it clicks, and then turn it right back to center. And then I'll go to the transmission. If it's automatic, now if it's standard, this is really not going to cover standard too much. Standard, checking a standard transmission fluid, most cars is a little bit of a different beast. We can do that another time if you ever want to see that. But for automatics, you'll put it into reverse. So you park, then you go reverse, neutral, drive. If your car has gears, you put it into each gear, then back into reverse, and then park. Reason I do that is that way it lets the fluid flow through the entire transmission, and then we kind of, we can kind of look into it a little more accurately. At the same time, though, you don't want the car to get too hot, because if the car gets too hot for the engine fluid levels have different viscosity levels. So a car that warms up for 10 minutes and has 5W30 engine oil, when you pull out the dipstick, will look a little bit different than a car that has 20W50. So I find just warming up just for a minute is enough to get the fluid starting to flow between the engine, but not enough that the viscosity gets too loose, and then you get kind of a harder reading. Now, also, of course, moving wheel lock to lock is for the power steering. It allows the fluid to flow between through the power steering unit, and kind of get a little bit more of an accurate reading as well. Now, I'm not going to show you the power steering on this car. Normally I'd get a rag, but the power steering on my Grand Prix, and I know other cars could be like this too, but I've really only seen this car, it's all the way under back there. Yeah, and being in the position I am right now, I'm recording with one hand, not really in a good position to actually get that to you. But really, when you open it, it's just a little cap, very similar to the brake fluid cap, whereas the brake fluid lid, when you take that off, it's just a lid. On the power steering, it's got a little notch at the bottom. That's your fluid level. So when I pull that out, open it up, same type of thing, just screw a little bit, pull it out, clean it off. So you want to get a rag, clean off the actual little knob that sticks out from the bottom of the lid, put it back in, screw it on, open it back up, take it out, and look at the level. If the level shows low, fill it up. Same thing with that. I would say check that about once a month. Or if you hear any noise, like if you're turning the wheel and all of a sudden your power steering is making like whiny noises or anything like that, you're going to want to check that out and see, because oftentimes fluid is what causes it. A lot of people think, oh no, my steering is going, or I'm getting problems or anything like that. No, actually, believe it or not, a lot of times it's the power steering fluid. I've had that experience many times with many cars where people came to me, I'm having problems with my power steering, and really, it's just the fluid. Top up the fluid, problem's gone. So you want to make sure that you're checking that. Now, as far as fluid, most cars use a standard power steering fluid that you can even pick up at your local parts store or anything like that. Power steering fluid can also be used with ATF, automatic transmission fluid, in some cars. That I would say only in emergency situations, and only if you're knowledgeable enough to know what to mix. If you don't know, stick to the regular power steering fluid as detailed by your manual, put it in, and away you go. Again, try not to mix the fluids if you can. Engine oil, let's get to that a little bit next. That one is a little more straightforward. In this case here, I've got my filler cap. It's right here. Right? That's if I was filling the oil, because this little hole here is a little bit too small to actually put engine oil in. Even with a funnel, it would take you forever to fill that up. You don't want to bother with that. So assuming you've had the car run for a little while, you'll pull that out. Again, wipe off your dipstick with your a rag or anything like that, and then take a look at your engine oil. Now, if you look at mine here, now my car's been running for a little while. So the reading it's giving here is after the fluid has actually been very thinned out, and it's more of an inaccurate reading. So after you wipe down the dipstick, you put it back in, take it back out, look at it and see, and it'll give you an accurate reading of what you have on your fluid, and then top up. Engine oil is, to a degree, more interchangeable. 5W30, 5W20, 5W20, 10W30. They are interchangeable. If a car has 5W30 and gets older, some will say put 10W30 in, which I do recommend in some instances, because you want a little bit of a thicker fluid to coat the parts. Of course, there's also semi-synthetic, synthetic, and all sorts of different types out there. But again, my car says right here 5W30. It's an older car, but mileage is low. I stick to the 5W30 for now. So again, I know I keep stressing it. I've said it like a million times already in this video. Stick to the right type of fluid. And that's it. Top it up, see what you need, and that's it. Of course, I'm assuming you're doing your regular oil changes, which I very much support. You want to get the old fluid out, new fluid in. Something that's also overlooked by many, many people. And even in today's world, where you can actually stretch out the fluid more than you could like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it's often stretched far, far too long. And then people wonder, how come they have engine failure early on? I mean, my car's 12 years old, still going strong. So it's these little things that make the difference. Transmission fluid, similar idea as checking the oil. You have your thing here. My car has, you know, this pin obviously, and you're going to see a little gear on it. And of course, brake fluid. You know, you have maybe a stop sign, or you may see there's different symbols that can indicate brake fluid, and of course the .3. Engine oil. Because normally most cars is something similar to this, but there's actually some of them that say oil. You know, that's it. Coolant will have a similar thing to that. Looks like a radiator with fluid inside. Again, there's variances of it. Washer fluid is a windshield getting sprayed. I think that's pretty universal toward most cars. So, you know which fluids you're getting. In this case here, transmission was just a little gear. Pull that out. Clean it off with a separate rag. And once cleaned off, put it back in, take it back out, and take a look. See how, if it's clean, dirty, what it looks like. You know, it should have a nice orangish hue to it. If it's starting to get very black or grimy looking, you'll probably want to get that serviced as well. Which, by the way, I have a video on. So you can check that video out too if you ever want to see what it's like to change the transmission fluid on this car. Bit of a process, but it really can be done by almost anyone. So that's it, guys. That's all that's involved in really checking your fluids. You know, make sure you use the right fluid. Let's recap. Use the right fluids. Use separate funnels. Check your own manuals to make sure you know which fluid it is. And then do some of them when it's cold. Coolant, washer, brake. Although washer and brake doesn't matter. You can do that in it whenever. Warm up the car for about a minute. Move your steering wheel. Go through your transmission. And then turn the car off. Come out. Check your power steering. Check your engine fluid. Check your transmission fluid. And that's it. That's it, guys. That's all that's really involved in it. It's actually a lot easier in the process, and even though this video is going to be about 17 or 18 minutes long, has been me mostly talking, let's be real, and checking your fluid even once a month will take you about 5 minutes to do. That 5 minutes can save you a ton of time, a ton of money. It could give you insights to your car. You know, you see your brake fluid going down, transmission fluid looking dirty, engine oil always going low, coolant levels dipping all the time. You'll know that there's problems, you know, there's stuff happening in your car and you should get it checked. Get it checked before it becomes bigger issues. Alright guys, I want to thank you so much for watching the second episode of Auto FYI. Again, make sure to like, comment, let me know what you think. If you like the videos, don't like the videos, whatever you're looking for, let me know. And then we go from there and I'll have some more videos soon. Alright guys, take care. Bye.